There's something strange about long drives at night. The world feels emptier, like the road exists only for you, stretching endlessly through the dark. I was driving home from visiting my parents, a 6-hour trip that I'd done dozens of times before. It was close to midnight when I realized I was running low on gas. The next station was about 15 miles ahead, according to the sign I passed. By the time I pulled in, the place looked half abandoned. A single fluorescent light flickered above the pump, buzzing loudly in the silence. The convenience store inside was dark, but I could see a clerk standing near the counter, head down, maybe asleep. As I filled up the tank, I noticed a man standing near the far edge of the lot, just outside the reach of the light. He wasn't moving, just facing the highway, completely still. I tried not to stare. Maybe he was waiting for a ride or just some drifter. When I finished and looked back again, he had turned toward me. He didn't move, didn't wave, just stared. Something about him felt wrong. His clothes were too clean, like he didn't belong out here. I got in the car quickly and drove off. But 20 minutes later, when I stopped at another station to grab coffee, he was there again, standing in the exact same spot. At first, I thought I was imagining things. The same man? No way. But as my headlights swept across the lot, I saw him clearly this time. Same posture, same jacket, same blank expression, standing near the edge of the property, facing the highway. I told myself it was a coincidence. Maybe it was just another traveler dressed similarly. I parked by the store entrance, but when I got out, I couldn't shake that cold feeling that I was being watched. Inside, the cashier was leaning on the counter, scrolling his phone. The place was empty, except for the hum of refrigerators and the faint country song on the radio. "Hey," I said, "you see that guy standing out there?" He barely looked up. "What guy?" I motioned toward the glass door. The man was gone. I stepped outside, scanning the lot. Nothing. The air was still. The only movement, the fluttering of a torn paper cup by the pump. I tried to laugh it off, but my hands were shaking as I started the car again. I stayed on the highway, trying to put miles between me and that weird little town. The road was empty, no other headlights for as far as I could see. Every few miles, I'd check the mirror, just darkness. Then, around 1:30 a.m., I saw another set of lights up ahead, a small gas station glowing in the distance. I hadn't planned to stop again, but curiosity got the better of me. As I slowed down, my stomach dropped. There he was, same man, same stance, standing under the dim yellow light by the pumps, looking straight at my car as I rolled by. I sped past without stopping this time, but the image burned in my head. His face pale, eyes hollow, clothes untouched by dust or dirt, despite being out in the middle of nowhere. The further I drove, the worse it got. Every few exits, I'd see him again, sometimes by a station, sometimes standing just off the road near a rest area, always still, always watching. I started to panic. My GPS said the next town was 40 minutes away, but the road ahead looked endless. I kept glancing in the mirrors, waiting to see headlights or movement. Nothing but the empty highway stretching behind me. Then my phone buzzed. A low battery warning at 5%. I cursed under my breath and looked up again. The man was standing in the middle of the road. I swerved hard, tires screeching as I missed him by inches. My car fishtailed before coming to a stop. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear. I looked behind me. The road was empty. No one there, just the faint sound of gravel settling. For a full minute I sat frozen, gripping the wheel so tightly my hands ached. The night outside was dead silent. My headlights caught nothing but the shimmering asphalt stretching endlessly behind me. I forced myself to breathe, told myself I must have imagined it. Exhaustion, darkness, and caffeine making my brain play tricks. But my heart wouldn't slow down. I pressed the gas, desperate to keep moving. The tires crunched over gravel as I merged back onto the highway. I turned the radio on to drown out the silence, but all I got was static. No music, no stations, just the hiss of white noise. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. No service. That's when the temperature in the car dropped. I could actually see my breath fogging up the windshield. I checked the vents, heat still on, and then, in the rearview mirror, I saw movement. A faint outline, sitting in the back seat. I whipped around so fast the seatbelt cut across my chest, but it was empty. Nothing but the crumpled fast food bag on the seat. My breathing was ragged now. I turned back toward the road, and that's when I saw it again. A gas station ahead. Same layout. Same single flickering light. I knew it was impossible. I'd driven at least 40 miles since the last one. But there it was, and standing under the light, perfectly still, was the man. He was closer this time. His head tilted slightly, as if waiting for me to stop. I couldn't take my eyes off him as I passed. His face caught in my headlights, just long enough for me to see his mouth move. He whispered something. I didn't hear it, but I could read his lips. "You can't leave." I slammed the accelerator. The car roared forward, the gas station vanishing in my mirrors. The road blurred beneath me until I finally saw a highway sign, the turnoff to my town. But when I took the exit and turned down my street, my blood ran cold. At the corner, under the same flickering light, outside the small gas station near my apartment, he was standing there, waiting. I didn't even park when I got home that night. I left the car idling at the curb, sprinted to my apartment, and locked every door and window. For hours I sat on the couch, staring at the front door, the sound of the engine outside faintly humming through the window. I didn't sleep. I didn't even blink for long. When the sun finally came up, I went back outside. My car was still running, the tank almost empty. The road in front of my building was empty too. No man, no sign anyone had ever been there. I tried to convince myself it was exhaustion, highway fatigue, caffeine jitters, maybe even a dream. I didn't tell anyone. But over the next few days, little things started happening. Every night around midnight, I'd hear the faint hum of a fluorescent light buzzing outside, the same sound I'd heard at those stations. And when I'd glance through my blinds, I'd see a figure at the far end of the street, standing perfectly still, just watching. It never moved closer, never spoke, just stood there under that same flickering glow. A week later, I moved to another city. I even sold my car. But some nights, when I can't sleep, I'll check the window, and every now and then, under a streetlight far away, I'll catch a glimpse of someone standing motionless, his jacket clean, his face pale, his eyes locked right on mine. And for a split second, I can still hear his voice. "You can't leave." There's a stretch of highway between Nevada and Utah that locals call the Sleeping Road, not because it's peaceful, but because drivers who stop along it sometimes never wake up. I didn't know any of that when I took that route. It was supposed to be a simple road trip, just me and my best friend Josh, heading home from a weekend camping trip. The sun had already gone down, and we had about 3 hours left to drive. We'd been talking, laughing, playing music, trying to keep ourselves awake when the headlights caught something up ahead. A car was pulled over on the shoulder, just past mile marker 187. Hood up, hazard lights blinking weakly. Josh slowed down. "Someone probably broke down," he said. I wasn't so sure. The way the car was angled, it didn't look like it had just stopped. It looked placed there. Still, we pulled over. I rolled down the window. "You good?" I called out. No response. The driver's door was open, and a shape was slumped over the wheel. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out, even though every instinct told me not to. As I got closer, I realized something was wrong. The man wasn't slumped. He was sitting upright, perfectly still, his hands gripping the wheel, his eyes open, and he was smiling. The smile didn't look natural. It was too wide, stretched across his face like it didn't belong there. His eyes were open but unfocused, staring at the empty road ahead. I froze beside the car, my flashlight trembling. "Sir, you okay?" No answer. Josh leaned out the window and yelled, "Dude, come on, let's go." But I couldn't move. Something about the man's stillness didn't feel right. He wasn't blinking, not once. Then I saw something that made my stomach twist. There was blood, faint dried streaks, trailing from the corner of his mouth down his chin. I backed away slowly, my voice shaking. "Josh, call 911. He grabbed his phone, but before he could finish dialing, the hazard lights went out. The headlights flickered, then died completely. Darkness swallowed the road. I spun toward the driver's seat, and it was empty. The man was gone. I ran back to our car, heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. "He's not there," He's gone. Josh laughed nervously. What do you mean gone? I mean he's gone, I yelled. He grabbed the flashlight from me and shone it on the other car. The seat was empty. The only sign anyone had been there was the faint smear of blood on the steering wheel. Let's get out of here, he said. We peeled out, tires screeching against the asphalt. Neither of us said a word for miles. By the time we hit mile marker 190, the adrenaline had started to wear off. Josh kept checking the mirrors, muttering to himself that it had to be some kind of prank. That's when we both saw it. A pair of headlights appeared in the distance behind us, small at first, then growing closer fast. Someone's coming up, Josh said, but when the car reached our rear bumper, it didn't pass. It stayed right behind us, tailing our every move. I looked closer at the reflection in the mirror. It was the same car, same dent on the hood, same flickering headlight. Floor it, I said. Josh hit the gas, pushing the car to 90. The other car matched our speed perfectly. My phone started ringing in the cup holder. An unknown number. I picked it up, my hand shaking. Hello? Static. Then a voice, low, broken, but somehow familiar. Why did you leave me? I dropped the phone. Josh shouted, What the hell was that? But before I could answer, the headlights behind us blinked once and then vanished. Just gone. No car, no light, no sound. We drove in silence for the next hour until we saw the next exit sign. We pulled into a small diner, parked under the flickering light, and tried to calm down. Josh looked pale. You think it was a ghost? He asked. I didn't answer. I just looked down the highway through the diner window. At mile marker 187, faint in the distance, a pair of hazard lights flickered back to life. The lights flickering in the distance looked almost rhythmic, like someone was turning them on and off by hand. I couldn't stop staring through the diner window. Every blink of those hazards sent a pulse of dread through my chest. Josh tried to laugh it off. Probably a tow truck, or someone else stopping to help, but deep down, I knew better. We finished our coffee in silence. I remember the waitress asking if we were okay, because I looked white as a ghost. We left cash on the counter and walked back out to the car. The air outside had turned colder, sharper. The highway stretched out black and endless beyond the lot. As soon as we pulled out, my stomach dropped. There it was again, the same car from before, parked on the shoulder about 50 yards ahead, engine idling. The red hazard lights blinked faintly in the darkness. Josh slowed down, and I shouted, "Don't stop!" But he already had. We rolled past slowly, my flashlight shaking in my hand as I pointed it toward the driver's side. The man was back, same clean jacket, same too-wide grin. Only this time, his head turned as we passed, his eyes following us the entire way, glowing faintly in the beam of my light. Josh floored the gas pedal. We sped down the highway, neither of us speaking. My heart wouldn't stop pounding. After a few miles, I dared to look back. The car behind us had its lights on again. It was following us. "Lose him!" I yelled. Josh took the next exit, cutting across an empty stretch that led toward a bridge. The road was narrow, surrounded by fields. When we looked back, the headlights were gone. Relief hit us both, until the car's interior lights flickered on for a split second. The rearview mirror showed a face. He was sitting in the back seat. I turned around, but the seat was empty. Nothing there, just the faint smell of metal and something burnt. We didn't stop until we reached town. We parked under a streetlight, both of us shaking. Josh refused to talk the rest of the night. The next morning, we drove past the same highway with a police escort. They checked mile marker 187. There was a car there, same make and color, but burned completely black. Inside, they found one body, and when they ran the plates, it matched Josh's car. The officer's words didn't make sense at first. I remember just standing there on the side of the highway, staring at the wreckage, the charred shell of the same car we had driven in only hours before. Josh was beside me, pale and silent. The detective kept talking, saying the crash must have happened sometime around midnight, but that was impossible. We were both alive, standing there, watching them pull a melted steering wheel from the wreck. I told him it couldn't be right, that we had stopped at the diner, that we'd seen the wreck after that. He just frowned and said quietly, "Son, that diner's been closed for years." Josh didn't say a word. He just got in the car and drove off. A week later, I got a call from his mom. He never made it home. They found his vehicle parked on the shoulder near mile marker 187. The driver's door open, engine running, hazard lights blinking. I haven't driven that stretch of road since. Sometimes at night, when traffic reports come on the radio, I'll hear about another accident near that same mile marker. Another burned out car, another driver who vanished. They always mention the same detail: hazard lights still flashing, and a man sitting behind the wheel, smiling. Truck driving isn't an easy job, but after 15 years on the road, I'd gotten used to the long nights and the quiet highways. You learn to trust your instincts, when to stop, when to keep going, and when something on the road doesn't feel right. It was late, close to 2 a.m., when I pulled into a small rest stop somewhere in Arizona. The lot was nearly empty, just a couple of trucks parked far apart, and the faint glow of a vending machine buzzing near the bathroom. I parked under the only working light, locked up the cab, and decided to grab a few hours of sleep. Before I dozed off, I adjusted my dash camera, an old habit for safety. It ran all night, just in case someone tried to mess with the truck or break in. I fell asleep to the hum of the engine, the desert wind howling faintly outside. When I woke up around 5:30 a.m., the sky was just starting to turn gray. Everything seemed normal. Nothing had been touched. But when I checked the dash cam footage later that morning, what I saw didn't make sense. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the truck's interior light flickered on, and someone was sitting in the passenger seat. At first, I thought I must have hit a button on the remote and accidentally turned on the interior light, but the more I watched, the worse it got. The dash cam showed everything crystal clear. I was in the driver's seat, asleep, mouth slightly open, head tilted back. And in the passenger seat, facing me, sat a man. He wasn't moving, just sitting there, completely still. His hands rested neatly on his knees. His face was turned toward me, but the light only caught part of it, enough to see pale skin and a faint smile. I scrubbed back through the footage, checking how he got there. There was no sign of him entering the truck. One second the seat was empty, the next, he was just there. I froze the frame and stared at it for what felt like an hour. At first, I thought maybe it was a glitch, a reflection, a trick of the light, but then the figure blinked. A slow, deliberate blink. I felt my stomach drop. I kept watching. For about 2 minutes, the man didn't move at all. Then, at 3:19 a.m., he leaned closer toward me, his face almost brushing mine, and whispered something. The dash cam didn't have audio, but I could see his lips move. 3 words. "You're still asleep." Then the light shut off. I skipped forward a few minutes. At 3:24, the camera flickered again. The man was gone. I jumped up from my seat, heart pounding, and looked around the cab. Nothing. Everything was exactly how I'd left it. The door was still locked from the inside, but the smell, that hit me next. A faint odor, like damp soil and rust. I opened both doors to air it out, but it didn't fade. That's when I noticed something strange on the windshield. 3 perfect fingerprints on the inside glass. They were smudged, like someone had pressed against it and dragged slightly. I checked my phone to call someone, but the signal was dead. No service. Outside, the rest stop was empty, completely still. The other trucks that had been there earlier were gone. The vending machine light flickered in the distance, buzzing faintly. When I walked back toward the cab, I hesitated. Through the window, the passenger seat looked occupied again, like a faint shadow sitting where the man had been. I yanked the door open. Empty. Just the faint indentation on the fabric where someone had been sitting. That's when I decided to leave. I turned on the ignition and floored it out of that rest stop. The whole time I drove, I couldn't stop checking the mirrors. Every flicker of light on the glass made me flinch. I told myself it had to be exhaustion, a trick of the mind after too many hours on the road. But when I pulled over at the next gas station, I checked the dash cam again. At 3:30 a.m., right before I left the rest stop. The man in the passenger seat turned his head and smiled at the camera. The smile was the worst part. Small, strained, like he was trying to look human, but didn't quite understand how. He looked straight into the lens, eyes wide, unblinking. Then, right before the clip ended, his lips moved again. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. I could read them clear as day. Don't look away. I slammed the laptop shut so hard the screen flickered. I sat there in my truck at that gas station, shaking. My pulse was pounding through my ears. After about 10 minutes, I convinced myself to open the footage again. Maybe I was just seeing things, but when I loaded the file, something was different. The timestamp had changed. It no longer said 3:30 a.m., it said live. The feed was still running. I froze. The camera was facing the inside of my cab, but not from the dash this time. It was angled from behind me, like someone was recording from the sleeper compartment, ending in the corner of the frame. I could see the back of my own head. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I spun around instantly, flashlight raised. The compartment was empty. No one there, just the faint smell of that same damp soil again. I yanked the power cord out of the dash cam and threw it on the floor. The screen went black. Then came a sound from the sleeper area. Soft, slow tapping on the wall, like fingers brushing the metal. 3 taps. I stepped out of the cab into the freezing night air. The gas station lot was empty. No other vehicles, no people. Just the wind cutting through the pumps. I got back in and started the engine, refusing to look in the rearview mirror. I just drove, highway after highway, until dawn broke over the desert horizon. When I finally pulled over to rest, I decided to delete the footage. But when I plugged the SD card back in, the files were gone. All except one. 3:17 a.m. MP4. The thumbnail showed me, sleeping in the driver's seat, and someone else sitting beside me. Only this time, his head was turned completely toward the camera, and he wasn't smiling anymore. I deleted the file and threw the SD card out the window somewhere outside Tucson. For a while, I convinced myself that was the end of it. That maybe it was a bad dream, stress, or some sick joke my mind had played on me. But 3 nights later, while parked outside a distribution center waiting to unload, my dash cam turned on by itself. No one was in the truck. The key wasn't even in the ignition. The screen flickered once, twice, then went black. When I checked the saved footage the next morning, the file name read 3:17 a.m. 2 in MP4. The clip was short, only 15 seconds long. The view was from the outside of my truck this time, angled from the passenger window. The lens caught my reflection faintly as I slept inside. But right before the video ended, a pale face leaned into frame, so close that its breath fogged the glass. Same face, the same eyes. It whispered something I couldn't hear. Then the feed cut out. I quit driving not long after that, sold my rig, took a warehouse job in the city. Thought that putting miles between me and the road would fix things. But every few weeks, my phone buzzes around the same time. 3:17 a.m. unknown number. No message. Just a blank notification. And if I open my gallery afterward, there's always a new photo, taken from inside a truck. I haven't owned one in years.